What industry do you want to see fold and never come back? Scientology. 1000%. Any religious organization that is a facade to make its administrator/founders wealthy. Lots of mega churches are set up specifically for this purpose. Some of whom are defying COVID-19 warnings on gatherings since they want the gravy train interrupted. Yep, and at one in Tampa they issued a warrant to arrest the pastor. Riverlink was put in charge of collecting tolls from cars going over the Ohio River between Kentucky and Indiana. If you don't have a pass, they mail you your bill. Except they never do. I've heard countless people say it happened to them, and it happened to me twice. So one day you get a final notice bill with a fat late fee attached to it, and you can't contest it. I've tried. I don't know how they're allowed to operate like this, but they need to duck all the way off. For more fun, I love getting toll bills from places I've never traveled to with pictures of either blurry darkness or very clearly not my car attached. I got one of those a few years ago. They decided to drop it after I pointed out that I had retagged my car in another state 2 years before the date on the photo with what was claimed to be my old plate. Sounds like they were definitely fishing for people who weren't paying attention. Every business that thinks it's okay to clog my mailbox with useless mail, unless it's a government or legal document, either let me handle it online or duck off. I particularly hate those envelopes that say important notice or important overdue items or some bullshit lie along the lines of you're in deep shoot trouble. Open this. I cannot stand how much ducking trash they send in the mail. I've never seen such duckiness anywhere but in the US. In the countries I've been, none of them do such shoot. They're always trying to sell me car insurance. I don't own a car. Someone called me saying it's the final notice for my car insurance payment. I don't have a driver's license, and it was my first week in the country. Timeshares. I recently went to a timeshare presentation and got some free plane tickets and some smaller gifts. The sales pitch is done well. They throw so many numbers at you that, as long as you're not actually doing the math, it can all sound very tempting. The saddest part of the entire thing was how clear it was that the person doing the pitch was foolish enough to buy into the program and was likely working off his debt to the company. The thing is super predatory. They offer financing for a 3-year package that would take more than a decade to pay off. They moved everything to a points system, so in theory you can vacation anywhere. But even with points, the vacation still costs a couple $100. That's not including the price of the points. You end up owning nothing. Just some rough numbers that I remember. $16,000 a year for $32,000. There were multiple plans offering various amounts of points. $700 a year maintenance fee. $209 for a vacation after apply points. Financing was $2,350 down and $250 a month. 15% interest rate. I don't have time to scroll through this many comments, so pardon me if it's been said. The funeral industry can duck right off. The sheer cost of what they charge for everything and all their little add-ons and hidden fees and high pressure tactics when people are at their most vulnerable should be illegal. I'm seeing more and more people going back to wakes or celebrations of life at home or other venues. Wife and I have already put those instructions into our wills and opted for cremation. We want to bequeath our money to people and charities we care about, not line the pockets of those greedy ducks. There is a YouTuber called Ask a Mortician, and she goes into detail in several videos about different methods you can use to save money and what predatory behaviors to watch out for, as well as telling you what your rights are, because many funeral directors will say by law you have to embalm, or by law you have to do this or that, and it's not true. My dad passed last year, on my birthday of all days. We moved across the country a few years back, so when I got the call from mom, my time after was about making arrangements to close our business for a week, dealing with the airlines and all that fun. I trusted my older sister would be able to handle making sure my mom was both okay and that she would keep the costs in check, since my father was being cremated, which was a huge shock because he swore he never would. It was supposed be a simple gathering at funeral home for about 50 people, snacks, and then disperse. Somehow that turned into an open casket viewing with all kinds of ridiculous add-ons like the stupid printout of the itinerary and a low-res photo, a full catered lunch, which was cold, gross, and no one ate, a paid pastor to oversee the service, and a casket that must have been made of solid gold based on cost. She paid full price for the casket simply for the viewing, because they claimed they destroy them afterwards. Which I do not believe at all. What should have been a couple grand turned into almost 20. I was floored. That's money my mom, who is retired and living on a pretty crappy pension, could have used or invested, or quite frankly blown on strippers for all I care, but it was her money and they conned her out of it by saying things like doesn't he deserve a better send off, or wouldn't he have loved this idea, etc etc. They acted like they had her best interests in mind, while they gouged a grieving woman over and over. Needless to say I haven't spoken to my sister since I discovered this all. Her, 42 years old, inability to protect our mom was infuriating. The fact that you have to protect someone from vultures when they are going through the hardest thing imaginable disgusts me beyond words. Sorry for the novel, I just haven't vented about it, and honestly it's enough to bring me to tears of anger almost a year later. Edited a word. Pharmaceutical ads. Not exactly an industry, but I'll never understand why they advertise these drugs for various conditions on TV when your doctors would recommend these drugs themselves if they deemed them appropriate. Could cause loss of hair, stomach ulcers, skin cancer, sleep apnea, mental distress, breast enlargement, irreversible dark skin patches, vomiting, loss of sight, or death. But I have a backache. And let's not forget now, the painfully obvious do not take this medication if you are allergic to this medication. My favorite part is tell your doctor if you have high blood pressure, pulmonary disease, hepatitis, any number of other things that my doctor should already know that I have. The drug companies keep saying their prices are so high because they need to finance research for new and better drugs, but they spend $400 million a year on advertising. How much research would that pay for? We could research how to make more effective ads. Human trafficking. I think everyone who isn't currently trafficking humans is against human trafficking. Human trafficking is much more common than you may think. I would bet that most people have supported a business that participates in human trafficking without even knowing it. 2 nail salons and a Chinese restaurant in my area were nailed for human trafficking recently. Mega churches and Jodestein specifically. What actually is the deal with him? I wasn't really raised very religious, so it just wasn't something I ever paid much attention to. I just know my aunt would listen to him in the morning when she had satellite radio, and my parents thought that was really weird. Televangelists are weird people, but what is wrong with Jodestein in particular? He's a televangelist worth at least $40 million. He also has never been poor and was born with a silver spoon. He has no idea what low-income people go through, yet encourages donations and tithing towards him and his church. He preaches on the prosperity gospel idea, which means God is responsible for success and financial prosperity. Poverty and sickness are a curse remedied through faith, which is highly connected to donating to religious causes, so him and his church. Basically, if you're poor, it's your fault for not being faithful, and you need to tithe more to help your situation. He tells people to donate even at the expense of themselves and their families. People have gone into debt to give to him, and he doesn't discourage it. He says he doesn't do prosperity gospel connected to money. That is a lie. He owns a 10,017,000 square foot mansion and a private jet. His church is one of the biggest in the USA, and the upkeep and multi-million-dollar renovations are funded by his followers, majority of whom are not wealthy. One criticism I saw is he makes his religion about people and what they've done, instead of about God, like the way faith/religion is supposed to work. The Hurricane Harvey incident was the worst. His church and preachings have 52,000 attendees a week. The church has like 16,000 seats and is over 600,000 square feet with a huge stadium. Now imagine how helpful that would have been for people displaced by the hurricane. Yet he refused to open it up and even lied that it was impacted and flooded. There's picture proof it was perfectly fine. Payday. Getting rid of payday loans is only a good thing if there's a better solution in place. Yes, they're horrible and predatory, and they are meeting a real need that no one else is willing to meet. I got screwed over by them myself when I was younger, but it was a choice between paying exorbitant interest on the one hand or being homeless and hungry with my then infant daughter on the other. They're a symptom, not the disease. I used to work for a company that was doing some research, including on a payday loan company, and I went in very negative, still am, but I think, based on what I knew of them, I always presumed the issue to be that they just didn't make it clear to folks the actually interest rates and risk. Almost every single backquote customer did, with several willing to point out how ignorant it was of me to presume the issue was education. Almost everyone I talked to as a customer basically said, I know the risk, but when your choice is between eating or being in debt, the debt doesn't really seem like anything. Political advertising. They are one-sided at best and straight up lies at worst. What's your alternative? Jules. I approve this message. So do the French. Wedding industry. I'm not saying that photographers shouldn't get paid for what they do or that florists should stop growing flowers, but it has gotten so expensive and it has very little to do with inflation. Expectations are so high, everyone is trying to outdo each other, and paying for one little thing is excruciating when you can get the same thing for a birthday party for significantly less. As someone who works in an occasionally wedding adjacent industry, music, I can explain why things are more expensive for weddings. Time and detail. For the photographer, they go to the child's birthday party to do photos, and that entails showing up when the party is starting, staying for the length of the party, 1-3 hours, and then having a few weeks to get the editing done, and generally will be left to do their thing and take the photos they think will work best. Compare that to a wedding, where the photographer shows up 2 hours before to do preparation shots, shoots the wedding itself, another 1-2 hours, does post-wedding stage shoots of the bridal party and groomsmen, another 1-2 hours, and then photos at the reception, another 1-3 hours. After this, there will be a rush on editing a percentage of these photos, so the bridal party will be able to share them within a day or two, and then the rest will be required within the next 10 or so days. Plus you are dealing with a greater attention to detail, and bridezilla/groomzilla/mother of the brides that think they know better than you and want what they want, but if it doesn't look as good as what they imagined it would be, it's your fault, not theirs. That's why the money is so much greater for weddings. Subscribe and leave a like, please.